Every year, millions of engines quietly meet their end because of overheating, and in most cases, it isn't caused by bad luck, extreme driving, or worn-out parts. It happens because of small, coolant mistakes drivers make without realizing the damage they're causing. One day, the temperature gauge looks perfectly normal. The next day, the engine overheats, the head gasket fails, the radiator cracks, and the owner is suddenly staring at a repair bill that can climb well beyond $3,000. What makes this especially dangerous is how silently it happens. Coolant problems don't always trigger warning lights or obvious symptoms until the damage is already done. Even brand new cars are vulnerable. Behind the scenes, the cooling system may already be breaking down, one mistake at a time. Understanding these early coolant killers is the difference between an engine that lasts for years and one that fails without warning. The first and most destructive mistake is mixing different types of coolant. This single habit is responsible for more engine damage than almost any other cooling system error. Mixing formulas, such as traditional green coolant with orange Dexcool, or combining Asian blue coolant with domestic blends, creates a chemical reaction inside the system. Instead of remaining a clean liquid, the coolant can thicken into a sludge-like substance. That sludge clogs the radiator, heater core, and thermostat, preventing proper heat transfer. According to automotive engineering studies, once incompatible coolants are mixed, corrosion protection can begin to fail within just a few thousand miles. The result is accelerated rust, blocked passages, and overheating that appears to come out of nowhere. The only safe solution is to use a single coolant type that meets the exact OEM specification for the vehicle. If a switch is ever necessary, a complete system flush is not optional, it is essential. Another mistake that seems harmless but causes long-term damage is using tap water instead of distilled water when mixing coolant. Tap water contains minerals such as calcium, magnesium, and iron. When these minerals circulate through a hot engine, they begin to deposit scale inside the radiator, heater core, and cooling passages. Over time, this buildup narrows the pathways where coolant is supposed to flow freely. The effect is similar to plaque buildup in human arteries. Circulation slows, temperatures rise, and pressure increases. As the engine runs hotter, components wear faster, seals weaken, and overheating becomes more likely. Distilled water, by contrast, is free of minerals and prevents this internal scaling. Mixing coolant in a proper 50-50 ratio with distilled water costs very little but prevents thousands of dollars in radiator and engine repairs. Many drivers believe that once a coolant flush is completed, the job is finished. This leads to the third common mistake, ignoring the coolant level after the first drive. When fresh coolant is added, air often becomes trapped inside the system. After the vehicle is driven and the engine heats up, those air pockets rise and escape, causing the coolant level to drop. If the level is not rechecked, the system may end up partially empty, leaving the engine only partly protected. This condition can exist without triggering any warning lights, yet it significantly reduces the system's ability to manage heat. Professional mechanics refer to this as the settling effect, and it is one of the main reasons many do-it-yourself coolant services fail prematurely. The correct approach is to recheck the coolant level after the first drive and again after 24 hours, topping it off as needed. Closely related to this is the fourth mistake, failing to bleed air from the cooling system. Air pockets are not just an inconvenience, they are a serious threat to engine health. Trapped air prevents coolant from circulating properly and creates hot spots inside the engine. These hot spots can cause uneven expansion of metal components, leading to warped cylinder heads or blown head gaskets. A common sign of trapped air is a gurgling sound behind the dashboard, often coming from the heater core. Modern vehicles are designed with bleed screws or specific bleeding procedures to remove this air safely. Skipping this step can cause an engine to overheat even on a mild day, making the failure feel sudden and unpredictable, when in reality the damage was building quietly. The fifth mistake involves trusting so-called universal coolant without checking whether it is actually compatible with the vehicle. Many modern engines, especially those with aluminum components, require silicate-free or specially formulated coolants to prevent corrosion and seal damage. Universal coolants often contain additive packages that may not work well with these materials. Over time, the wrong additives can wear down seals, damage water pumps, and reduce the lifespan of critical components. Studies from coolant manufacturers show that using incompatible coolant can shorten water pump life by more than half. While OEM-approved coolant may cost slightly more up front, it is far cheaper than replacing a failed pump or repairing internal engine damage caused by chemical incompatibility. The sixth and often overlooked mistake is neglecting coolant change intervals. Many drivers assume coolant lasts forever, especially modern long-life antifreeze. In reality, coolant degrades over time. The corrosion inhibitors that protect metal surfaces gradually break down, and the fluid becomes more acidic. As acidity increases, it begins to attack gaskets, sensors, hoses, and the radiator from the inside. This internal corrosion is invisible until a leak forms or a component fails. Manufacturers specify coolant replacement intervals for a reason, typically every 3 to 5 years or between 50,000 and 100,000 miles. For used vehicles with unknown service histories, failing to replace old coolant is a gamble that often ends in expensive repairs. Fresh coolant is not just about temperature control, it is essential chemical protection for the entire engine. These first 6 mistakes form the foundation of most cooling system failures. They work quietly, often without obvious warning signs, slowly weakening the engine's ability to regulate heat and protect itself from corrosion. By the time overheating becomes visible on the temperature gauge, the damage may already be severe. And while these errors are dangerous, the mistakes that follow are even more destructive, accelerating engine failure at an alarming pace.
Once the early coolant mistakes have weakened a cooling system, the next set of habits can push an engine from vulnerable to catastrophic failure with frightening speed. These errors often appear minor or are dismissed as normal wear, yet they are responsible for some of the most sudden and expensive overheating disasters drivers experience. What makes them especially dangerous is that they usually strike after the engine seems to be running fine, creating a false sense of security right up until the moment the temperature needle spikes and the damage is already done. One of the most common of these later-stage mistakes is overfilling the coolant reservoir. Many drivers assume that adding extra coolant provides extra protection, but the opposite is true. The cooling system is designed to operate within a precise range, leaving room for thermal expansion as the engine heats up. When the reservoir is filled beyond the maximum line, there is nowhere for expanding coolant to go. As temperatures rise, pressure builds rapidly, forcing coolant out through overflow hoses or stressing the coolant cap and seals. When the engine cools, that expelled coolant is often replaced by air, introducing new air pockets into the system. This cycle weakens hoses, disrupts circulation, and increases the risk of overheating. Proper coolant levels are not a suggestion, they are a requirement. Another small but critical component that is frequently ignored is the coolant cap. Whether located on the radiator or the expansion tank, this cap functions as a pressure regulator for the entire cooling system. By maintaining pressure, it raises the boiling point of the coolant and ensures efficient heat transfer. When the cap spring weakens or the seal deteriorates, the system can no longer hold pressure. Coolant may begin to boil at normal operating temperatures, creating steam pockets that disrupt circulation, even though the temperature gauge appears normal. Cracks, leaks, or chalky white residue around the cap are warning signs that should never be ignored. Replacing a worn cap is inexpensive, yet failing to do so can result in head gasket failure and massive repair bills. Many drivers turn to stop leak products when they notice a coolant leak, unaware of the long-term consequences. These additives are designed to temporarily seal small leaks, but they do so by depositing particles throughout the cooling system. While a leak may appear to stop, those same particles coat the inside of the radiator, heater core, and coolant passages. Over time, this buildup hardens, restricting flow and trapping heat. Mechanics often compare this to cholesterol clogging arteries, slowly starving the engine of proper cooling. What begins as a quick fix can permanently damage the system, making a proper repair far more difficult and expensive later on. Another silent threat is neglecting thermostat replacement. The thermostat controls when coolant is allowed to circulate through the engine and radiator, opening at a specific temperature to maintain balance. As thermostats age, they can stick open or closed.
A thermostat stuck open may cause slow warm-up times and poor fuel economy, but a thermostat stuck closed is far more dangerous. In that state, coolant becomes trapped inside the engine, causing temperatures to rise rapidly until the engine overheats without warning. Because thermostats often fail intermittently before failing completely, the problem can be difficult to diagnose. Replacing the thermostat at recommended intervals with a high-quality or OEM part is a simple step that prevents sudden and severe overheating. The water pump is another component that drivers often overlook until it fails completely. Acting as the heart of the cooling system, the water pump circulates coolant through the engine and radiator. When it stops working, overheating can occur in minutes. What many people don't realize